When my husband died, I was left at once with two newborns in my arms and not a single supportive soul at my side. I can still recall standing motionless in the sterile hospital corridor, the twins crying against my chest, as my entire family averted their gaze and drifted away one by one. My mother's eyes clung to the linoleum floor. My siblings muttered transparent excuses. Not one offered me shelter. They abandoned me deliberately at the very moment I was collapsing beneath the weight of grief and survival. Except for him. My grandfather, Arthur, a man my family derided as old money, a relic of another age, useful only for his fortune, and for their ceaseless whispers about the day he would finally die. Yet it was he who flung open the massive doors of his mansion and admitted me and my children without hesitation. "You will live here," he said simply, his voice steady, his gaze imbued with unyielding kindness. "And you will rise again." And rise I did. Life within those walls transformed me. My grandfather did not merely grant me refuge. He armed me with knowledge. He taught me the intricacies of commanding a business empire, the subtle art of discerning a person's true intent, and the quiet science of detecting avarice before it had the chance to speak. As my children grew, so did I, harder, keener, and infinitely stronger. I shed the identity of the desperate widow, replacing it with that of a woman who understood, with surgical clarity, the mechanics of power. My family kept their distance. My phone never rang. Birthdays, holidays, years slipped by without so much as a perfunctory call. They believed I had vanished, consigned to irrelevance. But when my grandfather passed, when his will was read, and when the empire was placed entirely in my hands, suddenly they remembered me. They expected the fragile widow they had discarded, pliant, uncertain, grateful for scraps of recognition. Instead, they encountered a woman forged in fire, calm and composed, commanding the full weight of an empire. They arrived at the estate gates cloaked in counterfeit smiles, pressing me into hollow embraces, cooing over my children like ornamental dolls. Their eyes betrayed them. They were already appraising the marble floors, the polished automobiles, the fortune I now controlled. I did not immediately cast them out. Revenge is not achieved by slamming shut the gates. It is achieved by opening them wide, allowing intruders to believe they still belong, and then demonstrating, methodically, that they no longer exist. The first phase was inclusion. I invited them to board meetings, bestowed upon them meaningless titles, furnished them with gilded business cards. They preened, convinced of their relevance. They never realized the true negotiations occurred behind closed doors, in rooms to which they were never admitted. Their grand decisions were elaborate charades, designed for their egos while I guided the empire with unerring precision. The second phase was exposure. I placed before them opportunities too irresistible to ignore. Partnerships demanding their own capital. Ventures whose sheen of promise concealed inevitable ruin. They leapt eagerly, funneling vast sums into doomed casinos and illusory startups. The failures were swift and spectacular. The losses devastating, yet entirely their own doing. The third phase was the blade they never saw unsheathed. When creditors descended, when lawsuits proliferated, when their self-proclaimed triumphs crumbled into ash, I extended a serene, magnanimous hand. I offered to purchase their debts, to rescue their reputations, to spare them scandal. In return, I claimed everything. Their homes, their cars, their vanity. Once owners became tenants. Once proud masters became employees, and the very companies they had mocked me for never entering. The crescendo came at the annual gala, my grandfather's cherished tradition. Beneath crystal chandeliers and the sweep of violins, they appeared brittle with desperation, clutching their fragile dignity. I let them sip champagne. I let them smile. And then, with calculated composure, I stripped away their disguises. Before every partner, every investor, every camera, I revealed their bankruptcies, their scandals, their humiliating dependence, each documented fact undeniable. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. My family froze, pale and exposed. I did not raise my voice. I did not gloat. I simply turned to them and declared with quiet finality, "You abandoned me when I had nothing. Now I own everything you sought to keep." The silence that followed was thunderous. I left them there, paralyzed, humiliated, reduced to the invisibility they once condemned me to in that hospital corridor. Only this time it was my choice. And I did not walk away alone. My children flanked me, no longer infants, but strong, assured, witnesses to the lesson carved not in fragile words, but in the enduring architecture of power. Revenge is not rage. Revenge is patience made weapon. It is the alchemy of turning abandonment into armor, grief into empire. They came to claim my success. They departed with nothing but indelible shame. And I departed with peace.